Hello and welcome everybody back to the Let's Get Wicked podcast where we talk about nothing but the tabletop game Villainous. I am your host, Joker Jonesy, and today I am joined by two wonderful people. One of them is my wonderful co-host, Headmaster Ditto. Ditto, you doing fine on this wonderful day?
I'm doing great. You know, it's nice with everything else shutting down for a little while that we can still keep things running on this end, so...
It is very nice. I'm still glad we can still do this regardless of the state of the world, which is very
Absolutely.
yeah.
Give everybody something to enjoy.
Exactly. Speaking of enjoyment, we have one of our returning friends coming back to the show today. Failure Factory. I'm clapping on my end.
Hello, hi. Thanks for having me.
I'm really excited to have you back.
Yay, me too.
Yeah. So, everybody, what we're going to be talking about today is something I know you folks have been clamoring to hear more about, as well as I've kind of gotten a little bit more interested in it personally, is that we are actually returning to the topic of custom characters and Villainous. But today, we're going to direct the conversation a little differently. So, last time when we talked about customs, we talked more about actually just sitting down into designing the customs and kind of sitting in the designer's shoes a little bit. Today, we're doing this in a different way where we're actually kind of going into specific custom characters that we've seen in the community. Now, we plan on really trying to talk about two customs today. One of them is definitely one I'm really excited to talk about because Failure Factory was responsible for its awesomeness. But Headmaster Ditto is also going to be talking about one of his awesome customs as well that I've had the pleasure of playing against, which has been pretty awesome. And we're going to be talking about Bill Cipher and Madam Mim. And just to let you folks know, you can get these customs right now in our Tabletop Simulator mod. Well, not ours, but Eldon's. Yeah, I had no part in this. But yeah, so you can instantly just get into it.
Surprisingly enough, I think these two characters are the only ones in that mod that are actually working right now.
Oh, that's right. Because aren't they? Because not everything's updated
all the updates
yet, right?
are
Yeah. Sad face.
all funky.
Yeah, but no.
Don't say that.
Hey, you know, I enjoy funkiness. As I like to tell people all the time, I like busted things, and busted sometimes means funky. As long as it doesn't smell, I'm okay with this. Anyway, let's jump into this, shall we?
I think some of the others are actually pretty decently working too. Yeah.
I would say we played again. Ditto and I the other day played your Horned King, and I was impressed about how much the Horned King has improved.
Yeah, he definitely had several issues where he was super complicated and hard to stop in the end. And he was the first custom I did, and ended up with a lot of ambition, a lot of. Sorry if I'm derailing here.
No,
but,
go for it.
Coming from the Dominion forum and creating fan cards for that, I wanted him to play a little like that and chaining stuff into each other. But in the end, I realized I was overdoing it. There were combos that felt like they should just work without a combo, and then you needed to do weird detours, and then there were things that were really not transparent to other players. And you realize these things when you play with other people. So I'm actually still working on slight tweaks for the Horned King, but I feel he's become a lot more straightforward and easier to process for other players than he started out as.
I have to readily admit, when I was playing against Ditto, because Ditto was playing the Horned King, I was playing Jafar, and it was amazing how the path for both of the characters feels very similar, but they still, like, that path is still very different. And I know I witnessed you playtest the Horned King at some point, and it was definitely a whole different beast in itself. But this version, actually, like, even with never playing against the character before, I knew what fake cards I should be using and like where I should be kind of tackling stuff, and I clearly understood what the Horned King's goal was and how to accomplish it, so I kind of knew what to do against it, which definitely made it a lot more fun. Because I know me personally, one of my biggest things when going up against customs is that I love customs, but if it's not properly, designed from the get-go, you can have a really hard time trying to figure out, like, as the opponent how to fate, because the goal is not super clear. Because like with Jafar, for example, you know, like your whole goal is you're supposed to capture the genie and then move the lamp down. So like those two goals are pretty easy. Like when you get a fate card, you can see the board and like, all right, I'll put this card here. I'll capture this item, you know, that type of ordeal. And with the Horn King, it was very easy of, all right, I'm trying to halt your progress to try to get the Cauldronborn out and ready to go, and also just summon the Black Cauldron itself. So whatever I can do to do that, it made it a lot easier and a lot more fun to play against. So definitely, for sure, that was an awesome custom.
Yeah, he had the issue earlier that no matter how many heroes you threw into his realm, he could just still win in earlier versions. And now it's any hero with a high enough strength will halt his process, because his Cauldronborn can slaughter any number of small, weak heroes, but the big ones will halt his process. And before it was really intransparent. And I feel that has also helped that in the end game, the issue earlier was that in the end game, the Horn King was basically unstoppable. And now I feel there are more options to halt his process even later in the game, which before was a big issue. You wouldn't fate him because you felt, he still had so much to do, and then suddenly he won because there was nothing to stop him. But yeah, that's all based on feedback from the fantastic community in the Discord, Board Game Geek, and so on. Yeah.
I'm super glad that you got that feedback too, because it definitely was playing against it. And ditto, I won't speak because you were actually the driver of it, but it was like
it felt so much smoother than it used to be. It's so nice.
He's still not finished. I feel he's still not on Medusa or Bill Cipher levels on polished, but I feel it's a little. Ironically, when you say Jafar, I think Jafar was the first official one that they did.
Yeah.
And the Horn King is my first official one. I feel he's also even modeled a little bit after Jafar. He has to have 2 key items that he brings out, or 2 key cards, and then he needs to move something all the way to the left. And then he has some specific card that needs to play and to pay power, and so on. So I feel he started out with a lot of these issues, which made it a lot harder to get him in a good shape later on. And when we're going to talk about Bill soon, I hope.
Oh, don't worry, we're going to talk about Bill.
Then I'm going. That actually went pretty. That actually fell more in place. I had one idea, and then that led to the next one, and that process was a little different.
I gotcha. It's really nice to see though. Like even though you obviously must have taken some inspiration from Jafar, the 2 characters are still very different. They have very similar like plans of execution, but the way that you go about them is still very different. Which I have to very much appreciate that. Which is
awesome.
Cool. All right. Let's get into this. So, I want to know about Bill. I want to know about Wierdmageddon. I want to know what your whole starting point with Bill Cipher is, because as someone who's recently watched all through Gravity Falls and now actually playing Bill and like seeing all the fake cards, seeing all the different cards in his villain deck, how his goal is accomplished, all the unique gimmicks he's got, he definitely feels like one of the coolest custom characters that we have received. Like from just in terms of everything I've seen so far, he definitely screams of, I wanted to be unique, and he fits that bill. No pun intended. Yeah, no pun intended at all. Fits that bill very well. So I wanted to make this somewhat feel like an interview, but at the same time, I kind of want to just kind of let you take the floor and everything. So I know last time when we talked, you said that you really like Gravity Falls as a show. So like when it came to choosing Bill, like to his objective, like what made you come to the conclusion of how to accomplish his objective? Let's start there.
All right. Okay. I might go into rambling a little bit here.
And please do.
So the reason to create Bill as a custom was that I love Gravity Falls as a show, and I love Bill Cipher as a villain. And Gravity Falls is a show that I felt always gives you a little bit of feeling that it ended maybe too soon, but at the same time, that's the perfect time for it to end, because you still feel you're a little sad that it ends, just like the characters are sad that the summer ends for them, which I felt was really sweet. It's a beautiful show about mystery, adventure, scary stuff, and so on.
I concur.
And I felt I wanted this to be a love letter to Gravity Falls and Bill Cipher. So, Alex Serge, if you're hearing this, thank you for Gravity Falls. If you're not hearing this still, thank you. And I wanted to make sure that it represents both Bill and Gravity Falls. The reason why I make a distinction between these two is to represent Bill, it needed to be really unique, as you said. I felt it needed to be a little unpredictable, because he was such a random, unpredictable, crazy character. And it also needed to be boundary breaking, because Bill, even though he never does it in the show, felt like the kind of character who could look at the camera and say, "I'm watching you folks," or something like that. So I felt if he did something that was really outlandish, that would be Bill. And for Gravity Falls, the thing with Gravity Falls is, because it's a TV show, Bill Cipher doesn't actually appear in every episode. He appears in, I think, 5 of them. What makes most of the episodes of Gravity Falls are these anomalies: the gnomes, the wax figures coming to life, the gobblewonker in the sea, and so on. And I wanted all these anomalies in, these weird mysteries of Gravity Falls. The thing is, they're not technically as strictly connected in the show, even though Bill Cipher is always present somewhere in the series. Like, I'm not sure whether the listeners know this, but in practically every episode of Gravity Falls, you can see Bill's image somewhere. Whether it's on a carpet pattern or a window frame, this triangle with the eye, his presence is always there. He's always watching somehow. So I felt even the things that don't necessarily interact with him that much still felt like they could be part of his deck or his mechanics. But at the same time, I felt like it was weird to have something like the gnomes be in his villain deck. It felt not really fitting for him to say, "Hey, these gnomes are my allies. I'm sending them out to do something for me." And because of because I wanted to have something unpredictable, because I wanted to have all these anomalies in, which would take a lot of space in his villain deck if they were part of his villain deck, and because it felt not really fitting to have them in the villain deck, I came up with the anomaly mechanic, where Bill is basically just causing the gnomes and all these other anomalies to pop up while he's actually trying to achieve something else, which felt like a good way to marry these two things, the anomalies in Gravity Falls and Bill's own reality-breaking mischief.
Yeah, I really dug that, because when I was playing as Bill and actually absorbing all the anomalies, it was interesting to see all the different little weird stuff that happened throughout the series as those cards, because none of those really have any direct effect with Bill himself, but as what you said, Bill's presence is always known in every episode, and it's he's already kind of overarchingly there if you kind of already just know the plot of the story, even without knowing that previous fact. And it's kind of cool that because technically Bill doesn't really become very apparent in the show till the very end, and then when Wierdmageddon happens, and Wierdmageddon happens when he turns the town upside down, basically. So it makes a lot of sense to be having all these weird things going on in your realm to make that happen. And I thought that was incredibly clever, especially the fact that you decided to make a whole separate deck for it. which I thought was the very interesting part of Bill, because you're right. I mean, those things don't directly interact with Bill himself, but they are still a huge part of the show, and they do need some type of, love and care, and make sure that they still, keep the series to what it is. It's supposed to be a giant mystery adventure show, and I really appreciate what you did there. It was really awesome.
As you said, Wierdmageddon. I'm sorry, should I?
No, go for it.
Just go.
Take it over.
All right. So the next step from the anomalies was, obviously I wanted, the anomalies were nice, but I needed an objective for Bill, and his objective needed to be Wierdmageddon, to some degree. And as I said, I wanted him to be boundary breaking, like messing with something that he had no business messing with if he was like contained in his game. And I felt like, okay, what if he's actually affecting the game component of the realm? That would work with his theme. And an original idea was to have the realm basically flipping and have it two-sided with a weird version of it. But then I asked myself, okay, what's the other side of the realm going to do? Is it going to be the same actions? Then it's completely pointless to do anything with it. Is it going to be different actions? And then economically thinking, why not just turn the realm 180 degrees? Why would I need to print another side? Why wouldn't I just turn it? And that meant that I could have put a quote on the back, like with other villains, and have it technically in the same format as them, but still do something really unique with him. That was a challenge, as I mentioned last time, to distribute the actions in a way that made sure that whenever you turn it, it turned out different. But it was a lot of fun.
His board is definitely very unique, because I remember the first time looking at it, the whole concept of having 3 play card actions and a 1 power on it, I was like, all right, this is going to get weird.
That plus the ability to just kind of set up more actions basically at your leisure,
which is super awesome. It is busted, and I love it.
The thing with the extra actions that he got was, I felt to cause Wierdmageddon, I took a little bit of inspiration from Maleficent there, like have one of your unique card type at each location. But at the same time, I didn't want it to be like with Maleficent, who has like, her curses are really easy to discard. They actually limit her. I wanted to have the opposite, where the cards actually give them an advantage, and where it's harder for the Fate deck to get rid of them. There are still 2 Zodiacs in there who can do it, but it's far less than with Maleficent. And that worked with this only being part of his objective. Like he needed the 4 anomalies, and then he would do Wierdmageddon, turning his realm upside down. But this also, and this is what I was talking about before when I said one thing led to another and fell in place. Obviously, if he turned his realm upside down, this couldn't be his winning condition, because if he's turning his realm and then he doesn't play on it, why is he turning his realm? Duh. So he needed to do something after that, and that was to defeat Stanford. And spoiler, sorry, I said spoiler after spoiling it, but he needs to defeat Stanford to actually take Wierdmageddon worldwide. And I introduced this as part of his objective, because then he had an actual reason to play on the turned realm. And so one thing led to the other, and this is how we got anomalies, Wierdmageddon, and of course Bill couldn't have a vanquish action because he doesn't have allies for most of the show that really do that. So he basically got a lot of hypnotizers in his villain deck,
which I thought was really interesting. So, like, because the only other character that we really have that type of mechanic with right now is Evil Queen, where it's like you actually have to use a card to defeat your heroes, and you actually made it so Bill specifically like has to use that type of card mechanic in order to defeat the different heroes, which I thought was, I mean, it thematically makes a lot of sense because even if you know the show, like with the other different heroes and stuff, like there's a point where they can't find Mabel, and Mabel's actually trapped in her own little happy place, and it's kind of like.
Yeah.
And it was kind of like Bill's way of saying, like, all right, I have defeated you, because he made a deal, in quotes, made a deal with this character, which I thought was really clever in terms of, like, trying to tie that thematically throughout everybody. And also with some of the other, not trying to get super spoilery, but the show's been done for a while. But what is it? I get these confused all the time. So Stanley. So like defeating
Grunkle
Stanley.
Stan?
Yeah, Grunkle Stan. Actually having to defeat him before you defeat other heroes makes so much thematic sense. It is incredible how thematically that just fits perfectly with this character.
As does zapping him with a memory gun to screw over Bill.
Oh yeah. No. It's
100%.
perfect. I love it.
Yeah, I was honestly really surprised how well it worked out.
Yeah.
I didn't. But, this was another reason why I put the anomalies in their own deck. Because I knew I needed several copies of this card, of Deal. And if I had put it all into his villain deck, I wouldn't have had space for that many anomalies. And I kind of wanted it to be a big enough array of different anomalies to represent the show well. And this was also another thing. Like, I had enough reasons to put them in their own deck already, but this is another thing that added on that. That I had more space for the conventional means or unconventional means for Bill to defeat heroes. It's actually interesting that, or not that interesting, but Evil Queen also just basically pays the hero's strength and power. She just needs to take an action to convert it into poison before. So she's technically based on a very similar approach of defeating heroes as Hypnotize or Deal are, in a way. Just she needs to take another step before that, and then she needs to move to the heroes. Actually, it's not that similar. Sorry.
Well, no, it's still. I mean, like the whole mechanic itself, because something I've learned of Villainous while playing it is that there are a lot of cards that do very similar things, and we're not even just talking like conditionals. Funny enough how that worded came out, but like there are plenty of cards in all sorts of the characters' decks where it's like you play a card and you're like fishing through your deck to go find particular cards. Like what comes to mind is like Jafar Scrying, whatever the hell it's called in Ursula's deck. You got
Divination.
Eye of the Fates with Hades. You technically could say Be Prepared with Scar. Radigan's got it with the list.
Definitely.
That like everyone's got these particular type of cards, and not even just that. There's also like characters that can move around the realm at the start of the turn, or things like that. And everyone borrows those mechanics from each other. It's just that then they use them in their own particular way towards achieving their goal. And I think it's awesome to see how you can take a mechanic that was already kind of built in the game and still like find a unique way to twist it on its head, because sure, it's Hypnotize, but it's the only way you can defeat heroes in your realm. Jafar, in theory, has other ways to defeat heroes. He's got a Snake in Eye. He does have allies in a Vanquish action. But, Hypnotize is only really needed for the genie. While with, Bill, he needs that in order to defeat characters. And on top of that, with Stanford, you have to take out more anomalies to make him weaker. So there's that part of it too.
Yeah. I mean, Bill also borrows, as I said, from Maleficent, the part of his objective where he has to have one card of his special type at each location. He borrows the Hypnotize from Jafar. He actually also borrows Hook's mechanic, or now Pete's mechanic, of adding an action to locations. Which I felt was a good way to make sure that even the anomaly deck is 12 cards. I couldn't make them all really different because then people would just be overwhelmed by them. So I needed to have something that worked. And because I was working at the Horn King at that time and he had activate actions and Medusa was shaping up to also use activate actions, I didn't want him to, well, there wasn't really a place for him to activate, but I felt I wanted to do something different for him, which is also the reason why Bill does not have a scrying type card. because the Horned King and Medusa both have them, and I didn't want to do it for Bill too. He actually started out with one that was called Knowing Lots of Things, and that did basically that.
I can imagine that probably makes him a little overpowered, just a smidge.
Yeah, I mean, he would have lost other cards in the process, of course, but you know, some things worked out pretty nicely from the beginning, like Hypnotize as his only way of dealing with heroes. Other things didn't work out immediately, like the journals, for instance, were a little went through several versions. If I may, I'm going to derail this a little further.
Do it.
The journals originally got attached to heroes Trident style when they were played, and they would only give Bill Cipher additional cards when he actually made a deal with those heroes, and they would become allies, and they would still keep the journal attached. And the reason why I felt this was good, well, it wasn't good, but it explains Robbie's ability, because his ability then would have been to slap a journal out of Dipper's hand and basically bully Dipper, and in the process hurting Bill. Now he's a lot less thematic than he used to be, but I think it's for the good of everybody.
I think the thematic concept of just having him steal one of the journals instead still works pretty well.
Yeah,
the journals are really two-sided things. They're really useful, but they're also dangerous, and I felt they worked in his villain deck.
It's very clear that like the way that Bill is built, like compared to any other villain that we have so far, he is definitely the most engine building heavy of anyone. Because like all of his cards, from the anomalies to the books, are very like, you're just building up to build this massive monster where it's really easy for him to eventually accomplish his goal, but a lot of his cards try to halt his process. Was there any like influence on trying to do that, or was that just came naturally as you were developing the character?
You mean the Fate deck?
No, not the Fate deck. So like the idea of like playing out the anomalies to grant the additional effects and stuff like the books, and even I forget what the allies are called that reduce the strength.
Henchmaniacs.
Yeah, the Henchmaniacs, yeah. But they're all of his cards are very just engine building esque, because not a lot of them are truly effects. They're very much more of, we're trying to buff overall like what you are able to do, like instantly make hero strength less at a location, or gain all these additional actions, or be able to gain more additional card draws at the end of your turn. He's very like building up this giant like stronghold, so that way he can just kind of pile drive the way through the rest of the game. That's what I'm going at.
Yeah, I guess it came up kind of automatically, or not automatically, but it was a natural direction to go by. As I said, unlike the curses of Maleficent who limit her, I wanted him to bring out his anomalies and actually benefit from that, and that would balance out by the fact that his objective took a little longer, or a lot longer, or was had more steps than, for instance, Maleficent.
I got you.
Yeah, I mean, it's true. He has a lot of cards that have ongoing effects, and obviously the Fate deck needed to do something about that.
What was the? Yeah. I assume it must have been really tricky to balance all those anomalies to make sure that, like, yeah, you want them to be powerful, but you also don't want them to be super game breaking. So, what was the process like of just designing those anomalies? Like, I know you were trying to base them off the show, but like when you were trying to actually like play test and make sure they weren't super crazy or weren't weak, like what was that like?
Honestly, I think they are not totally balanced. There are definitely anomalies that are a lot better than others. Like the Summerween Trickster is just a discard action, which, by the way, is making fun of the fact that the Summerween Trickster is composed of candy that has been thrown away. And it's probably one of the worst anomalies. And then there's Time Travel, which, if you play it to the Mystery Shack, just grants you +3 power. Or the Ghosts that can also do that. And some of them are just a lot better than others, which is why Zodiac is in there, and you can choose an anomaly to discard. So it kind of evens out. I I mean, the amulet is certainly not one of his best cards, but the point of that was to help with digging out the anomalies that you needed. But I wouldn't say they are all equally good. Definitely not. But I feel it's kind of part of the fun that you dig out an anomaly and then you go, yes, or you're like, ugh.
You're like, I got
And,
this
right.
one.
Yeah, Bill screwing with the player.
I hate to throw a quick tangent in here, but that reminds me of, once again, Oogie Boogie's scene in Kingdom Hearts where he's trying to control the Heartless, and it's just like, this is it?
It's like, really? Like, I got these two lackeys right next to me?
Yeah. Perfect.
That was great. Oh. We're gonna have to start a Kingdom Hearts show, Ditto. You do realize this, right? you know they're gonna want it at some point.
Don't hang this in front of me like this.
Anyway.
Nice to see you again, Key. Sorry.
Oh, yeah, really.
Just
oh my
Sora's the key. Like news. Whatever, Sora.
Oh,
Sorry,
it's okay. One thing I have to ask you though. So Gideon, what was the decision at like, because like in the show, Gideon, it's definitely like his whole purpose is trying to summon Bill to do like what Gideon wants. And then at the end of the day, kind of Gideon gets screwed over. Like, did you ever wanted to eventually make Gideon become a hero, or was it always intended for him to be an ally?
It was a consideration, but at the time I already knew about Yzma and Kronk, and I felt, I considered it, but in the end it's just reflected in Mabel's ability.
Yeah.
Like, the one character that Gideon cares about is Mabel. He's weirdly in love with her, and so when she's in the realm, he wouldn't hurt her, so he stops doing his ability. And I felt introducing a mechanic that could turn him into a hero. I technically could have just said that the memory gun can also target him or whatever, but in the end, I decided that it would make things too complicated. And I felt it was not necessary, and adding it as Mabel's ability, I felt already reflected that part of the show. And there are several villains and villainous that use characters as allies, or that have characters as heroes that have switching loyalties, or don't even have loyalties. Like the Queen of Hearts has allies that aren't her allies, and has heroes that actually are her employees. Like the White Rabbit is actually working for the Queen of Hearts. I felt I had a little freedom there, and didn't see a compelling reason to have Gideon become a hero. It just felt like Bill Cipher had enough complexity already. And I didn't want Gideon to be too complex in what he did. Yes.
It made me just realize that it's been a long time since I've seen the original Disney Alice in Wonderland, because the last time I saw Alice in Wonderland was that Tim Burton one, and I completely forgot that was like a whole thing of... They definitely Queen of Hearts does not control all those characters. I forgot about this.
Also, some of the characters that are heroes aren't really helpful to Alice at all.
No.
I guess Tweedledee and Tweedledum are the least helpful to her, but she's like destroying the White Rabbit's house, and there he is and saying, "Hey, woman who pays me, I'm going to stand in your way, and instead help this girl who destroyed my house." It's fine. I'm not complaining about Queen of Hearts. It's just I feel there's some freedom there. Where you like put a character.
For sure, there was definitely some freedom that was like, all right, we're gonna be a little bit more fun with this one, and not, because technically Queen of Hearts in that movie doesn't really have a huge interaction with those characters at all. It's more they're just there.
Yeah, I mean, this is Alice in Wonderland. It's just a lot of things happening that aren't part of one big story, which is, of course, this is how the novel goes. It's just Alice goes there, and then she meets this weird character. then Alice goes there and meets this weird character who does weird things. I mean, they're tying it together in the end when they all chase her. And then it's all a dream, of course.
Yeah, of course.
So it really sounds
then
like
that character didn't even need to exist.
Yeah.
But, anyway.
All right.
Weird tangent. Yeah. That's what this whole show is. It's just nothing but tangents. At one point I'm gonna yell "Fate the Rat," and it's not gonna mean anything in terms of the conversation. Let's just be real. Hashtag Fate the Rat.
When would that never be relevant?
Hey, you're the one that made it relevant. I'm pointing at
know.
What is it? Do you have any little last thoughts on Bill before we kind of jump over to Madam Mim, Failure Factory? You got any last thoughts you want to talk about with the character?
Did I mention that his quote on the back of his realm is encrypted in the Caesar cipher?
I didn't know.
I think I didn't, but I did mention it now. It's encrypted, and it just says, "Remember, reality is an illusion. The universe is a hologram by gold by." Which is a really random quote that he does once in the show, and which really doesn't tell us much about his motivations or anything. But
it's a great representation of him.
Absolutely.
That's definitely for sure.
Yeah, that was all. I just, yeah. Unless you have questions, I think I'm finished.
So, Ditto, do you have any lasting questions?
Not really. I mean, even as someone who didn't watch Gravity Falls as much as I wanted to, I pretty much knew from picking Bill up exactly what I was getting into, and it's silly fun, and I like it a lot.
It is definitely like, I love my busted stuff, and I'm not saying Bill is unbalanced, but like he has a lot of really cool, powerful things that he can do, and it feels really good to do it, and it doesn't feel like super unbalanced at all. It's just like, and it's, like we talked about, if you've watched Gravity Falls, it's just kind of really cool to see all of that like stuff from the show be implemented into the realm, and how I think very thematic it is, where like Bill's villain deck is Bill, while the anomalies are like their own thing, and I think it's very all well done. The goal is very well executed. I think it's a really, really awesome job, and especially the whole concept of like flipping the realm, turning it around, I think is just so damn clever. Like, I would have never even thought of that, and it's so cool. I love it. So I want to applaud you, Failure Factory. That is literally, this is one of the coolest damn things. It has made my heart feel full. So just know that.
Thank you.
Yes, it was seriously a blast. But now that we've paid the bill, we've given the bill enough of his weirdness. I had to make a pun. I had to. I want to jump over to one of Ditto's characters. Now, I've played against a lot of different of Ditto's characters. I know he's a big Frollo fan. He's also an Oogie person. It's probably why we get along so well. And
probably. That's probably like 90% of it.
Yeah. But one of the so of the three characters that Ditto has put together, I feel like the one that is probably the most well put together is Madam Mim. And now we do probably think that Madam Mim will come at some point, but this is still a very, very good execution of what that character will probably be like if she does come, and if she doesn't come, this is still an excellent way to represent the character from The Sword and the Stone. So
and see, it's funny because out of the three that I've actually published, I think Madam Mim is the one that I understand the least about.
Really?
Like, I don't even know how it ended up being this good.
That's funny. But you're a fan of The Sword and the Stone, though, right?
Oh, I am. It was one of my favorites growing up, without a doubt. Which makes me sad because they're getting live-action remakes, and I still haven't heard this one come up yet.
Sad face. Tears slowly rolling down my face.
It would be hilarious to see this come back.
Tell us about Mim.
But, so the idea, because this was kind of a personal challenge for me, to see exactly how well I could work with as little stuff as possible. Because much like Oogie Boogie before, and a couple other characters after Mim now, she only appears in a very brief part of the movie, as really kind of a tangent of the entire thing. It's like you have this entire life lesson deal with Merlin and Arthur, and then all of a sudden, here's this Madame Mim character. It's kind of unfair to say she's really the villain of the movie, but I count her.
Yeah, we do. We count her.
I count her. So it was really just a personal challenge to see how well I could do with someone that really doesn't have much presence. And that's kind of why she's set up the way she is. The only thing she's really known for is that iconic duel with Merlin. So I decided, let's make a deck out of it. And this was the result.
It's pretty cool too, because like one of the things I took away when you were playing as Mim is the fact that essentially all Madame Mim's deck is just a giant boss fight. That's really what it is.
It is. It's a boss battle.
Yeah.
And it's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is like back and forth between her and Merlin. And when you look at it on paper, what it really shows is that Madame Mim is all about manipulation.
Yeah.
She's got a lot of cards in her deck that let her move stuff around to set up for her kills. Which pretty well mimics the fact that she likes to kind of skirt the rules and cheat her way around the game.
You got your way.
But what is it? One of the things I definitely thought was interesting was that besides the fact that she has like a stamina mechanic, so like stamina is her health. One of the things I really liked about it was she actually does a mechanic that we've been kind of talking about recently on our Discord server about using multiple allies / using allies that can go above the strength of a hero. And that's essentially how you deal the damage.
And that is a completely silly meta thing that I didn't even realize I did until recently.
Yeah.
But the entire deal with Madame Mim actually like being fast is that there's actually nothing in the rulebook that says you can't use multiple allies to defeat a single hero.
Correct.
So in a completely meta sense, Madame Mim wins by exploiting a loophole in the game.
It's fantastic. I love it. It's great.
Which was completely not intentional at all, but it just ended up working that way.
It's cool too, because essentially, because the way Mim works is like all of her allies are just different, like magical forms of herself.
Yeah, because it's like Mim doesn't really have any connections to anyone in the show besides maybe Merlin.
Right.
So it's like she doesn't really have allies to work with. So why not extrapolate kind of the definition of ally here and just make it a rapid form? Okay, I'm switching to this form, and this form, and this form. Initially, I'd actually thought about putting a sort of limitation on all of them that you can only have one at a time. But obviously that didn't work out so good. So
no.
I just went with, this doesn't really make sense, but then again, nothing about her character really makes sense. So,
which, this is nothing against Mim, but this is probably why we haven't seen her yet, because it's similar to the whole concept of Boogie, where like she's not in the movie for very long. She doesn't have a lot of like connections with other characters, so like making a deck surrounding like a one singular character that doesn't have like any of the traditionals of that what we've seen in villainous so far, or just like Disney villains in general, but you've made it work, and I thought it was very clever how you did it.
Well, because it's like you just take the one thing you know about the character and explode it.
Yeah. Did you ever think of, because Hades did this, so like Hades has the unique Titan card. Did you ever think about possibly doing that with
I did, and I did very strongly. However, it didn't. It seemed like it was going a little too far.
Why is that?
Because it makes sense for them to be like a special card type, but as I was going along, and after I decided, not to do the one at a time limitation, it was like I was using them the same as allies anyway.
I got
so you. It really didn't feel like it was necessary.
I got you. Huh. Interesting. It kind of makes me think on, one weird thing I think about sometimes is the fact that, like, so Hades has, like, so the Titans are not allies. They are a unique card that he has. And, when it comes to, like, as a very, very formidable Scar player here, You know, Scar's rule book specifically states that like all the unique hyenas are like hyenas that go towards the hungry hyena's strength thing. So I was always
Yeah.
kind of curious why they just didn't end up turning the Titans
It
into just
and
straw
it
allies.
has always bugged me about that too, because Hades came out in the same expansion that introduced Dr. Facilier,
Right.
who one of the big deals is that 3 of his allies are also items. So there's no reason why they couldn't do Titan slash ally or something
Yeah.
just to make them a little more accessible, which would make sense.
Yes, it would. It would actually help with a lot of different things, like
And it would make a
Corolla's
lot of
Goal, Mother Gothels, or not,
yeah,
or condition cards. Um,
yeah, yeah.
balance patch incoming. But yeah, I think the one thing I really dig when you play Mim against me is the fact that she's truly just a boss battle, and the whole concept is like when you defeat a hero, whatever the overkill
Yeah, the
amount of
overkill
value
number
is how much you deal.
Because in the show they kind of suggest that the wizard's duels usually result in death, but it doesn't seem like it really gets pushed that far when we see it happening.
Right.
At least on Merlin's side. So I just thought maybe doing it as a boss battle and just your goal being basically to outlast Merlin and outwit him was a neat little concept to run with, and it just so happens that it worked.
I was curious because I know there's obviously a lot more characters than just Merlin, and the thing is that's very unique in this Fate deck is that a lot of it's basically just Merlin. That's essentially all it is.
Like 8 heroes in the Fate deck, and 5 of them are all different Merlin.
Right. Which I thought was very interesting choice. Because one of the things I talked about recently when we did our learning show was the fact that, you know, one of the things I think makes this game very stand out-ish in terms of, like, when you're just learning the game for the first time, is that if you know the movie, you know, usually, like, the big hero in the Fate decks are usually, like, the most powerful, like, heroes to play out. So stuff like Robin Hood, stuff like Simba, Hercules, you know, those characters usually stand out as the powerful characters. But really, in this case, Merlin's really the overarching character. You know what I mean?
He is. And when you think about it, the thing that Merlin has over Mim is the fact that he's able to use the knowledge that he has to his advantage and really think on his feet. Right. And so having him be not necessarily one big thing that you have to take down, but rather him shifting with you to try and outmatch you at the same time was just kind of a neat idea that I thought I would roll with. And it's not like all of the Merlin forms don't do anything. Like, there's a couple of them that are particularly problematic.
Like, what is it, that one cost hero that doesn't let you score?
Yeah, the one cost that doesn't score. Yeah.
Right.
You hate to see him completely. Yeah. It's like the one the one you would want to kill because it's really low power, but hey, you don't get anything from him. So haha.
Yeah, I thought that was really clever. Especially because he did some unique things with the allies too, where it's like was it the hero? Well, there's one ally that's like for every hero at the location, it's reduced by 1.
Yeah, it's like every ally has an effect that's based on the heroes. The tiger form is the one that starts off really high power, but gets weaker the more different heroes are there.
It's interesting. I think it's very clever about how you approach this, and it's done very well. It's also a unique way of kind of tackling the whole vanquish like goals, where it's like, oh, this whole person's goal is to basically fetch or defeat the hero. And in this one, you're still doing the same thing, but you're not directly like defeating a single target. You're actually just trying to overkill the target. It's almost very Scar-like.
It's a tactical thing where you want to go in and find the right form.
Yeah.
For the opportunity, because like you don't want the walrus to be the last one you do in this thing, because if you play it, you have to discard an ally wherever he goes, which hurts a lot. So he's the one you probably want to get first, which is why he's a little bit higher strength than the rest of the Merlins.
Yeah, it was really fun to kind of learn how to fate you, because the thing too is it's very much like, you know, very Scar like, where like when you're playing a hero out, you are slightly benefiting the player.
Yeah, it's like, do I want this hero to be here now? Like,
Yeah, exactly. Like, do
is
you
this
really
the
want them there?
time? But yeah, it does take a little bit of inspiration from Scar there.
I guess one thing I
It's
gotta
probably-
ask you is when it comes to like, because I know you worked a little bit with this when it was an issue with Oogie when we were working on this a little bit. Was like actually getting the heroes out on your own. Because I know that's like one thing with like every single character that has to go defeat a hero is that, and in their villain deck they have effect cards that allow them to
That let
fetch
them
heroes,
pull
but there's
stuff
like
out,
that
yeah.
balance of like how much do you put in there, how much do you want to make sure that's useful, that type of thing.
Well, she's got several ways to pull heroes out now.
Yeah.
That she actually didn't have before, which is kind of helpful. But she kind of does a similar thing to, oddly enough, Ursula,
Oh boy.
where she's kind of designed to make herself a target.
I
Because
getcha.
like with Ursula, her part of her game plan is to basically fate everyone so much that they fate you back, and in return, start putting heroes on the board that you can kind of shove off somewhere and get them out of the way so they don't show up again. Cough, cough, Ariel.
Oh god. Flashbacks.
And with Mim, it's kind of the same way, where you just kind of want to be an annoyance until your opponent fates out the right hero, and then go to town on him.
I can't believe you just made an Ursula reference like that, and it actually makes a lot of sense. You know what the
Right?
difference though here is? Options.
You can do it.
Yeah, options. You have the ability. Oh my God.
I will say that Mim is kind of distinguished in that she shares card names with like 3 different characters now.
Oh really? What are those?
Dragon form,
Oh,
she
okay.
shares with Maleficent, obviously. Black sorcery, technically she doesn't share, but Evil Queen has black magic, which is close enough.
Yeah, close enough.
And then the same with Pete sharing mischief and mischievous.
Oh.
Is one of the conditions.
But that's fine. It appears in the official game with Toby, for instance.
Yeah,
That's
it
true.
totally happens. It's just funny that so many things happened in Mim that I didn't expect or really intend to happen.
It's funny that you mentioned that because I actually realized that with all those different condition cards, they have to every single character has 2 uniquely named conditions. So it's like,
Well,
you know, like what are they gonna do for, you know, future characters? You know what I mean?
yeah, well, it just comes down to synonyms at that point.
Yeah, that's true.
Like, just find something that's close enough. Also, this is completely unrelated, but I just wanted to point out that Cruella's 2 conditions are cruel and devilish.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Think about it for a second.
Oh my God. I didn't think about that till you said it. Holy shit, that's great.
It's bad.
That's funny.
I mean, we already have conditions like trickery and deception, which I feel
Yeah.
are already pretty similar. So yeah, synonyms is probably the
Yeah,
way to go.
And it's funny they do the same thing
just
too.
a little thing.
Yeah. Their effect is
Little
the same.
details.
That's cool. See, this is why you folks are the designer people, and I'm the person that sits here and absorbs the game. You know, that's how.
Oh, come on.
That's
You
how
say
I
I'm
go
one of the
through.
designer people, and yet the best one I've made so far was a complete mishap.
Hey, sometimes it happens though. Sometimes the coolest things that you put together are the things that you're like, you know, I want to make this happen. I'll just challenge myself because, like, I mean, the designers have stated like the whole thing with the game that made this unique was Disney was like you cannot have the villains interact with other villains in other places. So
Yeah.
it was like, you know, when you give yourself those types of challenges, you know, it just makes it a lot more fun to design around. Because the more, I don't want to call them constraints, because even they've said that they don't like it calling it constraints, but it's like the tools that you're given, and then
the
like figuring out how to make it
best
fun.
thing would actually be to call it a constraint, though.
Yeah.
And it's really funny because there's just kind of, I don't want to say necessarily a common wisdom, but just the idea that the more constraints you work with, the more creative you have to be. And that's
Right.
what really where some of the best ideas come from,
For
which
sure.
is really neat. And part of what makes writing customs for this so fun. because you are trying to take, okay, here's this really cool character with all this stuff. Now, how do I make it fit this format?
Exactly. Or like, what do I make sure to make sure that the character does not play like another character?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because like obviously, as a fighting game guy, there are clone characters all the time, but like one of the biggest examples I always say that is amazing is in Killer Instinct. Jago and Fulgor are essentially the balanced characters, but they are still completely different on their own rights. And the fact that like they play like other balanced characters in other fighting games, but they have enough tools to make them still stand out and be unique compared to those characters that like you still can say like they're completely different, even if they got very similar look like tools. It's like it's just even like going back to the Horn King. Like sure, the Horn King has a lot of similar mechanics to Jafar, but the way that it all kind of
that it's done is unique. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very, especially that condition. Can we just talk about that condition card for a second?
The literal trap card.
Oh my god.
Terrifying. Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
It's so much fun. I love that so much. And that one card has actually inspired a lot of my recent conditions.
Okay.
Just because of how weird it is.
The story behind that one is the Horn King, again, to do the Horn King justice. He's easily one of the scariest Disney villains. And I feel that I wanted to have something where people are actually a little scared to mess with the Horn King. And that's how that condition came to be.
No, it's great. It's awesome.
It's one of the two unique things that I'm pretty happy with the Horn King. Yeah, he just needed to have something that made people a little scared of him.
I definitely was scared to fight the Horn King. I was that much. And I also know Ditto loves his busted condition cards, as I've learned.
Busted's a bit of a strong word.
No, yeah, I would say busted's a little bit of a strong word.
But I do enjoy really silly triggers for no reason, because why would you think to do that?
Because it's great and it's fun. Keyword, fun. Oh my god, it's like what we want to do this whole time when we play games, right?
Right.
Want to have fun and do fun things.
But like, it's fun to try to think of new triggers for things, because I've got one in a workshop right now that's like, if your opponent plays a hero during any fate action, like not even necessarily against you, just in general, if they play one.
Wow, that's unique.
Which is kind of a fun gimmick.
Interesting. Yeah, I'm curious because like it seems so far that like with all the expansions, they're gonna have all these like they have these unique condition card triggers, and like with this like Evil Comes Prepared, it was the whole when you would get fated with the Perfectly Wretched, it was like move an ally or item. I'm curious what the next universal like condition mechanic might be. I'm very curious about that. Because I don't even know what it could be. But I guess we'll have to wait and see. But anyway, you want to talk anything else you want to talk about customs, friends, or are we good?
Yeah, I think we're good. I am.
I don't know. You want to tell everybody?
Wait, tell everybody. Tell everybody what? I don't know. Anyway, I think we'll wrap up the show here, friends.
Right.
Unless we got anything else, but I think we are good on the customs. Thank you both for talking about your customs. I always enjoy hearing people's design processes and just the inspirations.
Not a problem. This stuff is fun.
Especially, the weird thing is like, obviously if we worked at a company, we would have to deal with like IP and stuff like that. But when you're making a custom, like you're basically like
everything's out there.
Yeah, everything is free reign. You can do whatever you want to represent a particular character, and it feels great. And I think you both have done really good jobs on the customs that you've both put together. I do want to shout out that I know Medusa is also a really good character that I've played against a few times a while ago, and I don't know if she's been touched up at all, but even like in her current form that she was still fun to play against. So I got to give you some more props, Failure Factory, on that too. Your customs are awesome. Seriously.
Thanks. I'm pretty happy with Medusa too.
Yeah,
actually.
It's funny too that before we knew what Cruella was going to be like, Medusa ended up having a lot of Cruella stuff.
Well, I mean, it makes sense.
Absolutely.
And thematically,
I think originally, I'm not sure whether I mentioned it this last time, but I think Rescuers originally was
supposed to be
considered by
Cruella.
Disney to be a sequel to 101 Dalmatians. And then they said, nah, we're not doing sequels. That was the first Disney movie they made a sequel of. So they created Madame Medusa as a Cruella stand-in, which is why she's doing reckless driving, which of course turned out to be one of her cards. Just random chance, I guess.
Really funny.
Like that and the phone and just the general mannerisms are so...
Yeah.
It was bound to happen.
I feel there are a few differences. Like Cruella kind of feels like she's rich and has influence, and even though she's not necessarily, well, I feel she's more elegant in a way than Medusa is, while Medusa is she's just a little criminal.
Yeah.
Which I try to reflect by giving her some items like the pulley or other stuff that's everyday items. So she's just working with
what she's got.
Yeah, exactly. She's working with what she's got. Like Jafar's got a snake staff, and Facilier got a staff, and Maleficent got a staff, and probably other people also got a staff that I forgot with magic powers, and she's got a pulley because that's what she's got. All right.
But that's funny. Okay, it's like the fact that Cruella is like, Medusa is very much like a true criminal. She's like this rough and tough, whatever, or not rough, you know what I mean, but like this typical criminal. Yeah. And then we got Cruella, who is literally just a psychopath that wants puppies. That's literally what she is.
Absolutely.
It doesn't get any more, villainous than that, literally. Because you're like, all right, I'm just a bad criminal.
Her for the back of the original rule book.
Yeah, that's definitely, that's why she's there.
I recently rewatched 101 Dalmatians. I was really shocked to see again how psychopathic Cruella actually is. She tries to push another car off a cliff at one point. She's actually trying to kill some random guy just to get these puppies.
I know. It's so... I did it too, and I was surprised how, because the whole concept of her is, she just wants to capture puppies and make them a coat. That's literally all she wants to do, and the process of her just doing that is just so jacked up that it's like, absolutely. Oh my God. Isn't crazy.
It really starts putting that song into a different context.
Oh, yeah, it definitely does. Also, I gotta say how much I love the fact how British that movie is. It is so great.
Yeah.
I love British culture as a very American person, and I'm like, that movie is just so British. It's not even funny. But it's so great. I wish more movies would be like that, but I can only dream. Until I get Oogie Boogie, I'm gonna keep dreaming. Anyway, I think we'll go ahead and wrap up the show here, friends. What do you say? I think we're good now.
We good.
We good? All right.
Yeah.
All right, friends. Well, thank you so much for joining me, and thank you all for joining us as we dove deeper into customs. Like I said, if you do want to try out any of these customs that we talked about today, they are all live in the Disney Villainous Tabletop Simulator mod that I did not have any hand in besides just shouting to the mountains about it. But seriously, if you want to go give them a try, they're there for your own pleasure. As well as, I know, was it Failure Factory, you actually have some of the assets on Board Game Geek for some of them if they just want to download and print it?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, there's also now Disney, there's the official, the wiki about the official Disney Villainous expansions and game. And there's also now a customs wiki that will also has some sites, some pages about the generator and including some hints and tricks how to do images and card backs and so on. It's all documented. You can find it in this homebrew wiki, which I feel should also help for all of you who want to create your own custom characters. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, don't let us have all the fun.
Exactly. Well, thank you. I'm so glad you put those resources together. That's super awesome, and it's amazing.
Welcome.
All right, friends. Well, until next time, stay wicked. Go play some. Play some video games. Go play some Villainous. And stay healthy, stay safe, and stay wicked. I'll see you folks on the next show.
Stay weird. Bye.